having problems maintaining your personal relationships? Maybe you're schizophrenic, or maybe you are the narcissist. Join Dr. Daniel Abdur Rahman McBride this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. as we discuss the self-serving left brain. Hope to see you there. All right. Ina alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulallah. I want to welcome everybody to this special, very special presentation that everybody's been waiting on with Dr. Daniel Abdur Rahman McBride. And this is on the self-serving left brain. A lot of us may suffer with issues such as narcissism or maybe even schizophrenia. Or maybe you have a problem controlling your anger or things like that. Remember, guys, the brain is connected to the heart. The brain is connected to the heart. And each and every one of us, we have a jinn assigned to our heart, and we have an angel assigned to our heart. And they never leave us until we die. How interesting is it, guys, that personal jinn is connected to the left part of the brain, and that angel, the part of the heart where that angel resides, that's that right part of the brain that triggers directly to them. So, inshallah, I want everybody to pay attention. Ramadan is coming up in a week or so. Subhanallah, you want to know how to overcome, issues such as anger management, narcissism, maybe schizophrenia. Well, let's see how strong the potential of your right versus left brain is. And with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daniel Abdur Rahman McBride. Alhamdulillah. You can go ahead, Dr. McBride.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today, we're going to focus on the left brain, the left hemisphere. Last week's talk was on the right hemisphere, and I'd really like, if you made notes, make sure they're close at hand, because after we discuss the left brain, we'll actually have a short discussion, if you like. One of the big things I'd like to start with in the left brain is, let's start with the benefits of the left brain. Allah has blessed us with benefits, and like with most things, your strengths can also be your weaknesses. Well, right now we're going to start with the strengths again, like we did last week. Hopefully I'll be able to stay on target of just the strengths, and then we'll bring in how they could be weaknesses. The idea is, one of the most important things about the left brain is its ability, and this is especially beneficial, say, to our kids in school. One of the most important strengths of the left hemisphere is its ability to maintain focused attention. This is the part where we referenced last week when I said, if you can take those right brain worries, move them over to the left brain and start focusing on left brain skill sets, focused attention. The left brain likes details. The left brain likes to break things into parts. It likes to systematize things, and it will make the big picture smaller. And now when it's smaller and you start analyzing it, that takes away a lot of the fears and the negative emotions that the right brain contains. Another thing really important with that in mind is, again, if we compare it to the right brain, if you're getting lost in a big picture scenario and you're not sure what to do, and oh my God, the right brain is withdrawal behavior, make sure you're safe. Well, contrast that, with the left brain. The left brain likes initiation. The left brain, again, detailed, focused attention. The left brain likes to do stuff and to take action. It's also motivation. When you become unmotivated and depressed, that's usually a decrease in the left brain and an increase in the right brain. So the left brain has a strength of focused attention. It likes to break things down into details. It'll part things out. It likes to create systems. It likes to look for patterns. It also likes initiation, which is part of motivation and getting things done so that you're not just sitting there in your thoughts. And it also really, really important, and the weakness here is evident, it's very literal, very logical. The left brain is not the emotional trying to fit inside of your total brain. The left hemisphere is going to, like I said, it's going to break things into parts. It's going to look for patterns. It's going to be very logical. It's going to be very literal. That's why the left brain is also known for early reading. If you've got a really strong left hemisphere in a child, they might be those children that we would consider our childhood geniuses. Oh my gosh, my child was reading all by itself while it was 2 years old. While it was 3 years old, it could already read whole words and in sentences and things. The left brain, following parts, breaking things down into smaller aspects, it is a very literal, it understands the exact definition of words. So then it'll see a pattern to putting letters together to make words. So that's your high IQ side of your head. The right hemisphere then, if you remember, is going to be your EQ, because it understands comprehension, it understands emotions, it understands facial expressions, body posture, tone of voice. The left side, the left hemisphere then is very literal. It can tell you exactly what it read. It can tell you exactly what was said. There are some left brain geniuses. These kids can actually, in a story Dr. Malil told us, he had a child. You could tell him when your birthday was, and that child could give you darn near every relevant fact in history that happened on the day of your birthday. Imagine that skill set. And again, that's that pattern seeking. That's that, okay, there's a pattern, September, whatever your birthday is, October, whatever your birthday is. And it memorizes and associates things like that. It's very logical, very literal, always analyzing. And that's why they say a lot of guys are more left brain than right, which actually the numbers, that's not true. We may be trained that way. And again, that's the nurturing part. But anything can be trained in, because the analyzing part, we're expected to be problem solvers. We're expected to be providers. When we go with those stereotypes, we're supposed to be a problem solver. We're not supposed to be the great listener. That's a learned skill that can be trained out of us, if that makes sense. And it can also be trained in. But if you're coming to me and you just want me to listen to your day, and then, oh my gosh, this problem, that problem, and then you get mad at me because I'm going to tell you, oh, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? And then you're mad. You never listen to me. You're always talking and trying to solve things. But that's a left brain skill set. And of course, like I said, with gender stereotypes, guys are expected to be problem solvers. And it's a cool thing in society. And in some scenarios, it's not a cool thing. And it's also really important to remember, even though I said last week, and I briefly just now, and I mentioned the right brain holding most of the emotions. Okay, because emotions tell you a lot, and it's the right brain is the survival side. The right brain is always on. The left brain kicks in a balanced hemispheric setting. The left brain kicks in after the right brain picks it up. This is important. Pushes it over, the left brain analyzes, the left brain parts it out, boom, 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 it happens to it, and then it sends it back to the right brain, and the right brain fits that information back into the big picture. That is ideal hemispheric involvement. Now, with emotions, the left brain contains three. The left brain contains happiness, surprise, and anger. These are considered, believe it or not, happiness and surprise, there you go. Those would be considered positive, generally speaking. Anger, how is anger positive? Imagine from a positive perspective, I get frustrated. I can't find the solution. You're an athlete. Your team is losing and you get angry about it. As long as the right brain is inhibiting excessive anger, balanced brain, then your anger and frustration, your frustration and anger, your anger can push you through into the next level of accomplishment. You're going to push through the frustration. You're not going to let every little frustration break you all the time. And then, like I said, it's initiation with motivation. So you're motivated to get it done and you initiate the actions to get it done. That's why those three are positive. The negative now with that would be what we see in our reelected white guy. Imagine have you ever seen any other than those three emotions? All we see is happiness has got his way, surprise he didn't get his way, and anger because he didn't get his way. And that's the shortcoming of one of the biggest shortcomings of the being super left hemisphere dominant with no right brain. Remember, the right brain is empathy. If it's socializing, it's about community, it's about fitting in. Well, if the right brain is about being selfless, an exaggerated left hemisphere is going to lean towards what? Selfless, selfish. And we can see that, for example, in our reelected white guy and the people that he's surrounded himself with. These guys, the way they speak, there's no big picture. It's all details. It's all logic. The big thing lacking there is it's a huge important idea is the big picture on things. They're making a big deal right now in world history. And here they're making a big deal about saving money and cutting out things that they don't think are important, but they're missing the big picture. You haven't heard any right brain conversation from the reelected white guy and the people he's surrounded himself with. It's embarrassingly logical to them because they break things up into parts. And if there's there's very little right brain like activity. Like they say, on the right, there's nothing left, is there, in those guys? So you've got this left brain activity. They're analyzing a lot. They're very detail oriented. They're very small picture oriented. They're not very creative. One of his biggest supporters, and we see him on TV all the time, is the guy that grew up in apartheid and praising these right-wing extremists all month long, right? So you've got these guys that are very literal, very self-involved, very not creative. That guy, for example, hasn't really created anything. He analyzes, he looks at the logic of it, and then he finds a way to buy it to make himself profit. The left brain, without control from the right brain or without influence from the right brain, accumulates stuff. It wants things. It's one of the things about focused attention is the short term. Remember when I talked about last week, when you're out hunting, you want a right brain hunter and a left brain hunter working together. You see the grass in the savanna wiggle and move, and you both look at it. The right brain guy and the left brain guy or girl. You've got these two hunters out there. They look at it, and then the grass doesn't move anymore. So immediately the left brain looks away because it's not helping achieve its goal, watching nothing move. If nothing's moving, then there's no reward to be had by staring at that non-moving grass. So they look away. The right brain, though, stays there because it realizes in the big scheme of things, what causes grass to move? It could be wind. Well, that's not all the grass. That's why you notice that little movement. What else would cause grass to move? A predator or prey. The left brain's looking, didn't see any prey, so it looks away. The right brain stays on it because to be safe, worrying about fear, worrying about survival, the right brain looks to make sure it's safe while the left brain continues scanning the horizon for dinner or lunch, right? So think about that. These guys right now, these guys and girls here in recent politics are very literal in their understanding of things. Very, very short-term goal achieving. And most of those goals, when you look at them, are very, very self-serving. There's how do you fire the entire nuclear staff when we need the guys and girls that know they're in a position? Then they had to bring them all back because they realized that's an important department. They're watching for nuclear stuff. They're supervising the nuclear stuff we have. How do you fire them thinking there's nothing nuclear going on? So why do you need them? I mean, very, very, right? Oh, let's save money. Let's fire these guys because there's nothing nuclear going on. Well, those guys and girls are the ones trying to prevent anything nuclear going on, aren't they? That's the long-term big picture, and that's what they don't get. Again, like I said, the left brain emotion, happy you got your way, surprised you didn't, and then uncontrollable anger because of that. Those are the three left brain emotions. Now, think about initiation. Let's shift over how good that is. Right? Initiate, get things done. It also helps with emotion with the anterior cingulate cortex we talked about before. Imagine if you don't have any social skills, you don't have any empathy. You certainly can't read the room. Next thing you know, you're blurting out statements. You're constantly saying something that's inappropriate. You never fit in. These are the people, a real good test for a strong left brain, or the people that are around you are what we call space invaders, the people that you may barely know or you share an office with, but you don't usually talk to. But when they come up to talk to you, they are right here. Those are very strong. Left, generally speaking, those are usually, unless they're whispering a secret, right? Those are usually very strong left brain initiation. They don't understand. They have no self-awareness, so they're not aware of your need for room either. They have no idea about what you might be feeling or thinking, but they want to make sure they convey their message to you. The literal, the logical, like I said a minute ago, think about what takes place there. That can turn into what you're saying doesn't make sense because they don't get metaphors. They don't get image talking. They don't get the emotional context of anything. They don't pick up on facial expressions. They don't pick up on tones. And they're the term could be self-referencing. If they don't already know it and it doesn't fit into the patterns, right? They're very pattern seeking. They like sameness. They don't like newness. They really like linear, logical. These are the guys that can memorize numbers and memorize phrases, and girls, but they don't understand everything. They'll tell you exactly what happened, but they can't always tell you why. Think about what takes place there when you become logical, when you become ultra literal, you and self-referencing, you really, really, really become self-ish. And you overanalyze things. Oh my gosh. I have a coworker, and it's funny that she would reference herself as getting anxious about things and getting stuck in the big picture. Sometimes problems can almost mirror each other, but they're on the opposite side of the coin. The idea is she doesn't get lost in the big picture. And we were just talking about this the other day. And I pointed out, I said, you don't get lost in the big picture. You never achieve goals, or you don't know how to set goals, because she literally chases this idea through all of the different options. And there's no way you will ever find a solution if you start going this way and then you say, oh, but what about this? Now you're off track a little bit. But if you have the big picture, you know where you're going, so you come back to it, right? No, what a left brain, over logical, forgot the big picture person would do, they chase it this way, then they chase it that way, then they go out this way. And then what about this? Oh, now they're over here. And oh my gosh, what about these two things? Now you've got two streams to follow, and they're both going away from your big picture goal. So that's where the overanalyzing, the linear, the logical can be a detriment. And again, with just three emotions, imagine if you have no empathy at all. That's where we talked about, and part of the title was schizophrenia and narcissism. We also have almost all of the psychopathies, psychological pathologies, almost all of the psychopathies start with a left brain dominance and a right brain weakness. Imagine schizophrenia. One of the big parts of schizophrenia, for example, let me use an example. Imagine the schizophrenic tells you they hear voices and there's nothing going on. Absolutely. You're there, they're there, and all they can do is complain about hearing voices and, oh my God, who's talking to me? And then in Islam, we might talk about the jinns, shaitan, this, that, and the other thing. But if it's a psychotic or a psychological pathology, then imagine if you're not, your right brain is almost non-existent. So you're not self-aware at all. All of us do, most of us do self-talk. Talk to ourselves. We may speak out loud. Some of us just, imagine you're in a crowd. I'm not speaking out loud, but I might be talking to myself. Oh, so-and-so this, or like I said, the example, oh, I'm so angry, I could kill him. And then the right brain kicks in and says, I said that. And no, you're not. The left brain, on the other hand, doesn't know, it's not self-aware enough to know that that is self-talk. So now you've got a schizophrenic. And because I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, this is not a diagnosis, but imagine if there's no right brain telling you that it's you talking, what is a left brain dominant person going to do? A left brain abnormally dominant, no balance at all. They're hearing these voices. They don't know it's them. You've got people who have had strokes and they're so bad that side is paralyzed, or there's these, you could have a trauma and you damage an extensive part of one side or the other. You could totally lose awareness of that other side. And they've got lots of studies, lots of examples that show people don't even recognize their paralyzed side as themselves. Can you imagine? You don't even recognize that. That's just somebody else. They actually have studies showing that they describe the inactive limb as a plank, as a board, it's not them. There's something called commissurectomies, or they surgically separate for a variety of reasons. And then the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere don't communicate hardly at all. When you cut through the corpus callosum, most of those fibers are for inhibition. So imagine you cut through that. Now there's no communication side to side through the corpus callosum, and you're an adult and you're trained for this communication and this natural inhibition that tissue serves. Now your right brain and your right brain and your left brain, right hemisphere and left hemisphere. Now those body parts, the opposite side, the opposite hemisphere, doesn't even recognize what pretend it's the left brain is trying to figure out what the left hand is doing because the right brain is controlling it. So your right brain is picking out the clothes for the day. Your right hand or left brain, boop, nope, I'm wearing this, right? So now you're literally almost battling back and forth like it's a total stranger because of that commissurectomy. That's how separate they can be, and that's what can happen in extreme exaggeration. So imagine, like I said, the schizophrenia. Now, when we talked about narcissism, imagine if you're a left brain dominant, you're logical, and the only emotions you have are happiness, surprise, and anger. No empathy, no guilt, no shame in your actions, no anything. You self-reference a lot. You think everything you know is all anybody needs to know, right? So you're going to be very self-involved. Left brain dominance, like I said, short-term goal setting, goal achieving, short-term stuff usually leads to the accumulation of stuff. That's why, like I said, one of our reelected white guys' main boys has accumulated a lot, hasn't he? And most of the other guys that are involved with stuff, all of them are about accumulating. There's no right brain activity at all. Their big picture is you might say, oh, so-and-so. Well, the one guy didn't invent anything. He was raised in apartheid. He knows to analyze and buy stuff and accumulate stuff. The other guys may have created stuff and made things better and accumulated lots and lots of money and stuff. But that's not truly creative. That's not truly big picture seeing. They are very short term, good at it because they've accumulated a lot, but there's no empathy. There's no social benefiting there. You got $200 billion and you donate 100,000 or you donate $1 million. That changes a little bit, but it's still not as much as someone with true empathy would give. The one guy's ex-wife is donating billions and billions, and the other rich guys are getting mad at her, right? Because she's literally changed things with the amount of money she's donated. That's empathetic, okay? So what you've got, if we can review, is the left brain is focused attention, good thing. But man, when you focus down too tightly, you become very self-involved in your own knowledge. You become very linear. You become way too detail-oriented. And you lose the big picture right brain side. You like breaking things into parts, which dehumanizes things. You've always got to take this big human picture, the big picture idea. It initiates. But a bad thing is you can try to impose, right? Could be initiation and motivation. So suppose you're over motivated and you totally lose track of the big picture, and it's all about you getting this done, irregardless of what happens around you. Very literal, very logical, which can lead in analyzing. And with that short-term desire of achieving goals, you can be very selfish. You can be, and then it leads to being very selfish. If you don't get your way, you become very frustrated and very angry. And you're surprised you didn't get your way, because everything you think, when it's way left, when it's a narcissist, when it's literally one of these psychopaths or sociopaths, right? They don't have the empathy, and they're nothing but surprise when their ideas don't work, and nothing but excessive anger because there's no right brain to balance that. That's why me leaning to the left, my computer guy, me leaning to the right. Excuse me, I'm definitely a right. I lean to the right. My computer guy leans to the left. Man, he points things out to me, you guys, that I don't see the pattern. I'll share an idea with him, and he'll pick things apart, ask me for details that I hadn't even thought about. But in our case, it works because I realize that, and I need that direction, if that makes sense. Some of the biggest stresses between a husband and wife, and that's why we're doing left brain, left hemisphere, right brain, right hemisphere. If you know your hemisphericity, and if you know your partner's hemisphericity, now you can better understand their motivation. If you're the spouse, and it can be brothers or sisters, I'm fine with that, men or women. If you're a left brain, always analyzing, I know when I bring something to you, you're going to start breaking it down right away. You're going to ask me way too many questions, and then I'm going to get frustrated because I'm a right brain. I'm just thinking about the big picture. Why are you interrupting me? Let me finish. Well, understand, they don't get it yet. If you're a right brain and they're a left brain, use your right brain empathy to slow it down and answer their questions, because it'll help you as a right brain part things out and figure out how to achieve the big picture goal. If you're a left brain person and you're throwing details and and I don't get it, you've got to be more patient with me, because I'm trying to figure out how those different parts fit in with the whole, if that makes sense. And then with spouses and family, we may display our emotions a little bit more. I may let you see I'm anxious, right? Well, what happens if I'm anxious and you're always interrupting me for more details? Now I start wondering, are you questioning me? Because once I do emotions, if you remember, once I get emotional, I totally shut down or decline its ability to inhibit and control and make sense, even if it's not logical, but the frontal cortex is where your humanity lives for the most part. So imagine I get anxious, I get emotional, the emotions take over, and now I'm not thinking clearly, and I get frustrated with you, because you're not letting me finish because you're asking me so many questions. And then you get frustrated with me because I'm trying to rush to the end and you don't understand anything. Right? Most relationships fail over small stuff. It's the little things that accumulate because without blaming yourself, you may not understand everything the other person, whether it's a work relationship, a spousal relationship, trying to figure out your kids. Believe it or not, as we're growing, and some of us take longer than others, as we're growing, we jump back and forth. Imagine how playful if you start right at birth, from conception to about the age of 2. So for the first 3 years of a child's life, it's all play, it's all response, it's all learning to smile, learning, right? We don't realize they're learning, but that's what's happening. They're figuring things out, and it's all right hemisphere. All socializing without even thinking about it. They're trying to learn how to socialize. They learn what smiles mean. They learn the loud noises. They learn tones of voice. They learn facial expressions. And then at the age of about 2, and we always talk about if it's a normal development, at about the age of 2, we hit what they call the terrible twos. What happens there? The left hemisphere comes in. Now they're starting to put all this together, kick it over to the left side, because that's turning on big time, okay, at the age of 2. So the first 3 years of life, we're learning. The next 2 years of life, now we're trying to put it all together. So the left brain is parting things and what parts go together. And let's, believe it or not, as a 2-year-old tries to analyze, you get all those why, because they're trying to figure out how that information fits in, and they need a why. They need their, believe it or not, 2-year-old logic kicks in, 2-year-old literal kicks in. They don't have a sense of humor yet. They may think things are funny, but as they learn words, little kids up until teenage years, in a lot of cases, they don't get sarcasm. They haven't learned if you're kidding or not. You may make a joke and and they take it literally, and it's an insult. They're offended. Oh my God, how could you say that? How could you hurt me like that? Little kids, right? Because they haven't learned metaphors. They haven't learned sarcasm again. They haven't learned the subtleties of the language because they're still learning the literal part. They're trying to learn their language, English, Spanish, Arabic, whatever the case. They are all trying to learn the literal meaning of the language so that then they can put those words over here to comprehend. Oh, if he says it with a tone of voice like this, it's no big deal. If he's trying to be funny, oh no, they're trying to be mean now. They're trying to, the dad's mad. He's not joking this time. That's all starting at about the age of the terrible twos. And then it jumps back about 6 or 7 to the right side. Just like we have physical growth spurts, we have mental and emotional growth spurts too. And it's hugely important to understand those concepts, because just like we see kids go from being, for example, they could be a great athlete. Next thing you know, everything hurts and they can't do anything right because they had this little growth spurt. Bones grow first, muscles, tendons, ligaments grow after that. So now they're awkward again because the bones are longer than the muscles. Everything's too tight. Oh my gosh, everything hurts all the time. They used to be tough. Now they're crying about little stuff. The same thing's going on in the brain, and you're jumping from side to side and you're trying to incorporate it in. So they may be super pleasant, super empathetic. Next thing you know, you notice they're having these angry outbursts and they don't understand. They're trying to figure it out and they just don't get it. And then they move back to being very pleasant and sociable. Then they move back and and then finally, believe it or not, women younger than men, finally, all of that starts to balance out and your prefrontal cortex is in its full development in the mid to late 20s. I'll be honest with you, I don't think mine came online until I was in my 30s. But the idea is that all of that happens back and forth in hemisphericity. So to summarize, especially within spouses, families, maybe even your work environment too, literally look back over these last couple talks. And next week, I think it'd be a good idea if we put things into perspective again, that we you look at what kind of hemisphericity you have. Try to figure out right hemisphere or left hemisphere. And then look at the people around you. What is their motivation? If you're a right hemisphere person, start moving outside yourself because you're very self-aware. Use that self-awareness and try to figure out what the other people are doing without getting locked in. Just very quickly, tone of voice, facial expressions. What is this person trying to project? You don't always have to give them the benefit of a doubt. Some people, their actions speak volumes, and you know exactly where they're coming from. If you're a left brain person or you lean left, try to figure out what is in their head. That's really hard for a left brain person because they don't realize that there's anything not like them, if that makes sense. And if it's not like them, frustration, anger, right? They're easily frustrated. If you're a left brain, if you're very logical, if you're very literal, if you're very goal oriented and you don't understand why your coworkers, your family, they just can't keep up. They don't achieve as much as you do. Try to figure out left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Maybe they have the big picture. Engage them more, and be very patient. Left brain people tend to get frustrated really, really quickly. And then, of course, the great override is nurturing. What's the environment they came from? Remember when we talked about goal setting and what I call Melillo's big three? You've got brains, which is your hemisphericity in general. You've also got your body, your physique, how healthy are you? And the third, and maybe the most important in terms of society and relationships and stuff, is biases. How does that person think? What's the environment they were raised in? Because the environment could be the great override for that person. You could have someone who's very left brain, very literal, very logical, and they have been, I don't know, picked on their whole lives because they weren't good athletes, and now their initiation and their motivation have almost been crushed out of them, right? They still left hemisphere. They should initiate and motivate, but they've been pushed into not being because they have become self-conscious, or it's the logic is there, but they've been crushed. Or a right brain, the same way. They hear about, they don't get anything done. Oh, say you were a muscular child, or say you pretend you're a muscular girl, buff girl from birth. You've always been buff, like shoulders. You're built for track. You're built for speed. You're built for power. You're built for strength. And as a young girl, people always talk about you're built like a guy. Oh my God, you're so this, you're so that. So literally unfeminine. Now, that socialization, that self-awareness, now imagine that self-awareness becomes self-conscious. Now, rather than being a great athlete, you try to hide all of that stuff. It was literally nurtured in terms of nature. They just beat it out of you, okay? And then because you're so worried about the athletic stuff, or because you're worried about your size, maybe you shift into an eating disorder, or maybe you just give up on your muscularity, which is a blessing. You give up on your muscularity and let yourself go soft, eat whatever you want, because you don't want people to look at you as being muscular and built like a guy. So you go real soft and unhealthy. That could all be created by the environment, okay? So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And if you want to, I'd really encourage you to reference last week's right hemisphere talk, and we can compare the two of them. And if I haven't covered enough about narcissism and psychopathologies, feel free to jump in with your questions.
Yes, Dr. McBride, we have a question here. One of the people are asking if you recognize that you are more narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
What are some exercises that I can do to strengthen the right part of my brain so I can become less narcissistic?
One of the big things you can do, I pulled out my right brain card from last week. One of the big things you can do, and a big step, if you're thinking about self and you realize you're very narcissistic, you're very self-involved, not self-conscious, but self-involved. The world revolves around you. Then you've already demonstrated a really cool right brain skill, and that's self-awareness. So you've already tapped into the right side. One of the things you can also do is, with that self-awareness, really start to think first and foremost. There's something called the theory of mind. And that is the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes and try to figure out, rather than focusing on how you're feeling right now, focus on what they're feeling on. There's a real cool research. Well, I say a research project that was released, but there's multiples. This was a summary I was reading of multiple research projects, and they were talking about people tend to like people that like them. So with that in mind, suppose you started trying to please others before you please yourself. That could be something as simple as conversational. You might start a conversation with an idea, and then when they start talking, do not interrupt. Just sit there and listen. And then, believe it or not, because remember, if you're narcissistic, you tend to lean left, you tend to be logical, you tend to be linear. You want your conversation. You probably started a conversation with the intention of leading to this point. Suppose you practice never getting to your point. It'll be hard, believe me. I know I do it, and I tend to lean right. But the idea is, suppose you practice trying to figure out what's going on in that other person's mind. What's the point they're trying to make? Because if you can start training that in, the benefit to you is you will develop a broader social circle. The people that, like I said, the people that like you tend to like. And people really, really, from a selfish point of view, people tend to like to hear their own names. They tend to like to hear their own thoughts. And you could really, really change from a narcissist to someone who's a little more socially adept and a little more socially aware if you started paying attention to what other people are thinking. That's that theory of mind. And then you might want to start looking at, rather than that short-term goal of what you're trying to achieve, what are they trying to achieve in the conversation? If you like reading, because left brains, narcissists, like the reelected white guy brags about not reading. He's just, that boy's just corrupt. Okay. There's nothing going on. Like I said, in the right, there's nothing left with that guy. The idea is that reading, because that's a left brain verbal skill. Okay. Verbal skill tends to be left. Start reading if you like reading, and try to figure out where the story's going. Try to figure out why the characters did the things they did. Try to figure out the why, not just what happened and when, but figure out the why. The why, the big picture, the comprehension is definitely a right brain skill. And then try to pay attention to a lot of stuff. If you're going somewhere, pay attention to the surroundings. If you're not driving, don't just pay attention to the speed and whatever's taking place right here. Look around, look at things for no reason at all. The right brain really likes to see other stuff. It likes to be externally focused. Don't focus on you thinking, oh, we're going to be late, oh, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, what might happen when we get there? That's that left brain linear pattern seeking. Start going with a bigger picture and ramp it down to external stuff. And then it's also, if you want an actual physical activity, you can do things like, I think basketball is a great sport for brain development because you can use both hands. I didn't learn how to play soccer. So soccer would be a great sport if you're good at that, because you can use both feet. It's and they're larger muscle groups, right? The more muscle you're involving, the more brain is involved. So you're using leg muscles as compared to arm muscles. You're stimulating the brain more. So I would recommend, I like I like basketball as a sport in terms of working with patients. It's harder to do soccer with in the office with a patient, but any kind of ball, big, small, using a ball, left brain, right? Because I'm dribbling with my right hand. Using a ball, dribbling with my left hand, right brain. At the same time, you could stand on one leg, stand on your left leg, dribble with your left hand, but keep a chair close by. Then dribble, crossovers all the time. Just go right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right. Now you're teaching both sides to work together. And then you can work on other harder skills to strengthen that stuff. Juggling is an unbelievable. I started practicing that, lost interest, and I'm hoping I get back into it because now I'm trying to learn sign language. But the idea is juggling is a great spatial skill for the right brain. You try to develop a pattern of behavior for the left brain. You're using both hands. You're using vision. Juggling is a great skill to pick up, and you can learn that all over the place. But I like basketball. I like dribbling. I'll be in the garage, and I'll just sit there and dribble just to stimulate both sides before, during, or after a workout. And of course, my kids loved it. So we talk and do a lot of basketball. Does that make sense? So if you want to stimulate more right brain, do more left body activities, figure out the whys, start paying attention to people, other people more than you pay attention to yourself. If you're going somewhere, pay attention to the environment rather than just getting there.